Hello to all viewers of my channel. Let's just start with that, shall we? Most fights are really protests over emotional disconnection. Think about that for a second. What if all those arguments, the ones about the dishes or money or who is supposed to call who, what if they aren't about that stuff at all? What if they're actually a desperate plea for connection? Well, today we're going to decode those hidden patterns that are running the show in our relationships. We're going to look at the emotional operating system that's been programmed into us since we were kids, the code that shapes how we connect, how we fight, and, how we love. All right, first up, let's talk about that one fight. You know the one I'm talking about. It seems to pop up out of nowhere over and over again. The topic might change. One day it's about being late, the next it's about a tone of voice, but it always ends up in the exact same painful place. So why? Why does this keep happening? Well, the research on this is just wow. It turns out a staggering 69% of all conflicts in a relationship are what we call perpetual. That means they aren't going to be solved, ever, because they're not about the issue. They're about fundamental differences in who we are and what we need. And here's the real kicker. When we feel that our connection to our partner is threatened, our brain doesn't just see it as a minor disagreement. No, it goes into full-on survival mode. It's called primal panic. It's this deep, wired-in alarm system that screams danger because, for our species, being disconnected from our tribe, from our person, literally used to mean death. So, what is it that decides how we react in that moment of panic? To get that, we have to look at our own personal emotional operating system, that internal blueprint that was written a long, long time ago. And that brings us to attachment theory. This was pioneered by some brilliant minds like John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, and what they figured out is that our very first relationships with our parents or caregivers create a template. This emotional blueprint basically sets the rules for the rest of our lives on what we can expect from other people. Is it safe to be vulnerable? How do I get my needs met? It's all in there. So, based on those early experiences, we tend to develop one of four main strategies for how we handle relationships. These aren't just personality quirks, okay? These are full-blown survival strategies that kick into high gear whenever we're feeling stressed, or you guessed it, disconnected. Now, this table is where it all starts to click. Look at this. Someone with an anxious style, their core fear is abandonment. So when a fight starts, what do? They pursue, they seek reassurance. But what if their partner is avoidant? Their core fear is being controlled or losing themselves. So when they get pursued, their instinct is to withdraw, to create distance. You see the problem? One person's attempt to feel safe literally triggers the other person's deepest fear. It's a perfect storm. So where does this blueprint even get written? Where do these fears come from? Well, the answer often lies in the echoes of our earliest experiences. We're talking about something called adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. These are potentially traumatic events that happen before you're 18. And they're not just bad memories. We now know they can literally change the way a child's brain develops, especially the parts responsible for connection and feeling safe. And before you think this doesn't apply to you, just look at this number. About 2/3 of all adults, 2/3, report having at least one of these experiences. This isn't a rare thing. This is the water a majority of us are swimming in, and it's shaping our adult lives whether we realize it or not. And here's how it happens. It's a direct path. An ACE happens, which often leads to caregiving that's inconsistent, maybe even scary. So what does a child do? They adapt. They have to. They develop an insecure attachment style, anxious, avoidant, disorganized, not because something's wrong with them, but as a brilliant strategy to survive a difficult environment.
Okay, so let's bring this into the here and now. This childhood blueprint isn't just some old story from the past. It is actively running in the background of your life right now. It shows up in your biggest fights, and even in the way you text.
So when these different blueprints, these different survival strategies come together in a relationship, they tend to create very predictable, very painful patterns. And there's one pattern that is by far the most common. It's the classic push-pull cycle. Sometimes it's called the pursuer-withdrawer dance. The anxious partner feels a little bit of distance, their fear of abandonment gets triggered, and they push in, they pursue. The avoidant partner feels that push as an intrusion, their fear of being smothered gets triggered, and they pull away, they withdraw. And just like that, each person's solution becomes the other person's problem. This is wild. These patterns are so ingrained, we can even see them in our texts. Researchers using AI have actually found clear digital signatures for each attachment style. Anxious types, they tend to text back super fast, get stressed by delays, and use a lot of emojis to try and manage the emotional tone. Avoidance, they often reply much slower and keep things brief and practical to keep emotional stuff at arm's length. I mean, this text exchange says it all, doesn't it? You can just feel the anxiety in that first text, the bid for connection, the worry. And then you see the avoidant response 5.5 hours later. It's short, it's dismissive of the emotion, and it pivots to a safe, practical topic, work stuff. Classic. Okay, so if we're all running this deep-seated programming, is that it? Are we just stuck in these cycles forever? Well, the answer from both psychology and neuroscience is a huge, resounding no. Our blueprints can be rewritten. And that brings us to this incredibly hopeful idea: earned secure attachment. This means that even if you had a really tough start in life, as an adult, you can actually develop the mindset and the skills of a securely attached person. You can earn security through new relationships, through therapy, through self-awareness. Our brains can literally be rewired. And let's be super clear about the goal here. The goal is not a perfect relationship with no arguments. That's a total fantasy. The real sign of a healthy, secure relationship isn't that you never fight. It's that you get really, really good at repairing the connection after you fight. It's all about resilience. So how do we do it? It starts by practicing new skills. Instead of instantly defending yourself, you pause and get curious. Instead of dropping hints, you learn to make clear, kind requests. And most important of all, you learn to master the art of repair, to say you're sorry, mean it, and make rebuilding the connection the #1 priority, way above being right. This really is the key takeaway. Understanding your past isn't about blaming anyone or having an excuse. It's about recognizing that the very patterns that helped you survive as a kid might be the exact things holding you back from thriving as an adult. By bringing your emotional blueprint out of the shadows and into the light, you get to take your hand off of autopilot. You get the power to consciously and intentionally build the secure, connected, and deeply satisfying relationships you've always wanted. Healing is absolutely possible at any age. Subscribe to the channel and like, and also suggest your topics for future videos in the comments.